right, welcome to the June 1st Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. Melissa, would you like to take roll?
Certainly. Vice Chair Knight.
Present.
Committee Member Wheaton.
Here.
Committee Member Harrington.
Here.
Committee Member Lemire is excused. Committee Member Moon. Here. Committee Member Lawrence. Here. Committee Member Barney.
Here.
Committee Member Costello White.
Here.
Committee Member Rizzo is excused. Committee Member Henshaw is excused. And Chair Reynolds.
Here. Right, we have a full building. Chris, do you want to lead Pledge of Allegiance?
Here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a couple of members of the public here tonight. Zach, welcome. Paul, welcome. Do either of you have anything you would like to bring to the committee that is not on the agenda tonight?
I do not at this time. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Zach. Paul?
Oh, nothing for now, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Discussion items. Transportation system plan update.
Okay, thank you. I'll introduce the topic. This is our final meeting as the CAC in our series of discussions on the transportation system plan. Again, the primary focus of this discussion is to evaluate projects in the 2020-2040 town center plan and consider including these projects in the town center in the transportation system plan. So tonight, Matt Bell is joining us. And he's from Kittleson and Associates. This will be their third presentation on the transportation system plan update, and will be presenting tonight and receiving our comments. This presentation tonight is using feedback from the last two CAC meetings and the comments that we have given and comments from city and county staff. So this has been updated. Now we are looking at the draft update, which is primarily focused on chapter 4, which is the future needs and improvements chapter. And the bulk of the updates are involving adding town center plan projects to the action plans and the master plan lists. So tonight we'll give our final round of feedback on the TSP. Following this meeting, it will go to Planning Commission and then City Council. And we're welcome to keep giving our feedback at those open public meetings, but they will get the latest draft based on our updates tonight. And I think with that, I will turn the presentation to Matt Bell with Kittleson and Associates.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Melissa. I'm gonna get the presentation up and running here in just 1 second, but just to sort of reiterate some of the things Melissa said there, where this is certainly not the last chance that we'll have to talk about this. Going forward, we're right now we're looking at the red lines in the TSP. We're talking about how essentially the information we provided in the previous two tech memos was incorporated in the TSP and resulted in those red lines. And a lot of this information, well, all of this information will also be shared with Planning Commission, City Council through the review and adoption process. So let me see if I can get this squared away.
While you're squaring that away, Matt, folks, it's hard. Pay attention to Zoom and to the auditorium. People in the auditorium, if you want to use your raised hand, that would be helpful. If not, yell. People at home, if you would use your raised hand emoji, please, when you have a question, I'm happy to call on you.
Thank you. And was that, Shelley, was that you that was speaking? Great. I'll do my best to keep an eye out for any sort of raised hands and things, but please feel free to just interrupt me if you see one that I'm not seeing.
Thank you.
All right. So the presentation, you should be seeing the presentation now. So again, this is the third time that the third and final time that we're going to be presenting in front of you folks about the Transportation System Plan 2022 amendment. Some of these slides you guys have seen a couple times before, but I'm going to go over some of this stuff pretty quickly. I'm just going to give you a quick overview on the project, talk about the schedule, provide an overview and a recap on where we're at, and then we'll get into the TSP update itself. So this has been the slide that we've been using to show what the project schedule is. So as you might remember, we met first time back in March of 2022 to talk about just our first initial assessment of potential discrepancies between the town center plan and the transportation system plan. We then came back together in May or so to come to consensus on the project list that was going to be incorporated into the town center plan. And now here in the June and July timeframe, we're essentially taking the information from those first two memos and the feedback that we got from you folks, and essentially redlining the transportation system plan, adding in projects, taking out projects, making minor changes throughout. So, and that's what we're here to present on today. Going forward later on this month and into the month of July, we'll be then moving into the more of the public review period, and those include meetings with Planning Commission and City Council. So as a quick reminder, the primary objectives of this amendment is to amend the TSP to incorporate the town center plan, evaluating inconsistencies between the plans, addressing those inconsistencies, and adding or updating projects in the transportation system plan. A secondary objective was to incorporate some of the regional planning initiatives. So first was the equity focused areas from Metro's regional transportation plan. We talked a little bit last time about how we might be utilizing Metro's equity focused areas as a basis for the prioritization. And then incorporating electric vehicle charging information to align with statewide initiatives from the climate friendly and equitable communities. And essentially just how we're going about incorporating those things into the TSP. So the transportation system plan consists of 5 chapters. The chapter 1 executive summary, 2 goals and policies, 3 existing conditions, 4 is the future needs and improvements, and then 5 is financing and information. The focus of today is largely going to be on the chapter 4. That's what you guys have seen. That's what we focused most of our attention on. But we have made updates to each chapter. Chapter 1, the executive summary, the edits there is primarily to sort of introduce the amendment, as well as to reconcile some of the language we're using to describe how the TSP has evolved over time. So for example, the current TSP was first updated in 2000, and sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. Was first updated in 2005, and then, pardon me, it was first. I don't know if anybody else can hear that, but there's a pretty bad echo there.
I think it's somehow. Sorry. Oh, it's me. Okay.
We're set. Thank
Sorry.
you.
I'll pop back in.
All right, I'll starting with chapter 1. So the executive summary, really what we're trying to update there is just to introduce the amendment to the TSP. As we've talked about before, the TSP was first adopted in 2005, and then it was amended in 2014. Those amendments were largely focused on updates to the bicycle, pedestrian, transit, and other and other modal elements of the TSP. And then this amendment is largely focused on bringing in the town center plan. So really just trying to describe how that has unfolded over time. The minor updates to goals and policies, and there are a couple of new policies that we want to add, and we'll share those with you here towards the end of the presentation. Existing conditions changes were fairly minimal there too, just really to reflect anything that was new from the town center plan. And then lastly, the chapter 5, the financing and information was updated just to reflect the new projects in the chapter 4 and projects being added to the TSP. So again, the bulk of the changes are in chapter 4 and what we're going to focus on today. So this is a slide we used last time to sort of show how the town center plan was essentially broken down into corridors and sites. And these are the corridors and sites that we've identified as having potential transportation infrastructure improvement projects that need to be incorporated into the TSP. We showed this slide last time to show how the projects from the town center plan were essentially being brought into the TSP, whether it was directly from the town center plan or whether it was some other alternative that we had talked about collectively as part of the advisory committee, or if we were going to just maintain something in the TSP itself. You can see through here that a lot of the stuff that was identified in the town center plan, particularly the stuff that was identified for the sites themselves, is being pulled forward. There are a handful of other things that have sort of evolved over time as well. And there's actually, I think we're going to go through each of these corridors and each of these sites. Some of them I'm going to spend a little bit more time on than others because I think that there's still some discussion to be had there. Some of them I'm going to try to gloss over, but please feel free to jump in and ask questions as we go along. We also, I think we shared this last time, but we also have been meeting separately with some folks from Multnomah County. And we've got some recent feedback from Multnomah County on some of these, and I'll try to incorporate that as we go along. So the first corridor that we've talked about is the Halsey Street corridor. And my apologies while I fumble around here. But the Halsey Street corridor, this is one that the town center plan had identified a specific cross section for this corridor. Some of the elements of that cross section, when we evaluated against the projects that were in the TSP, there was sort of a wash between whether or not which one of those should really move forward. But looming in the background there is this Main Streets on Halsey project, which is actually going to incorporate the towns, the Fairview, Wood Village, and Troutdale areas. Is not yet underway, but soon enough will be underway, and it's intended to identify some street level type of details and some real specific information for what this cross section is going to look like. So what we've essentially done here is we've updated, or we're planning on updating the TSP to update a few specific projects in the TSP that call out potential improvements on Halsey Street. And essentially now what we want to do is we want to just say that the Halsey Street will be updated or constructed to reflect the recommendations in the Main Streets on Halsey plan. We feel, and the county seemed to agree, that this is the easiest way of bringing in information from the Main Streets on Halsey plan without requiring an additional update to the TSP as we go along. Any thoughts or questions on that one?
Diane Castillo-White, I do have a question on that. The Halsey corridor is a mixed group of people from different cities and Multnomah County and other partners with that. And so I understand, well, they've been working on it for quite a few years, and I'm not sure what's being proposed at this time. I know they're on, I believe, a recess. I still do believe that Troutdale and will the council have a say once, because if we're just saying, okay, we're not even going to discuss it for part of the transportation plan, will planning and council be able to chime in with higher weight than the presentation of a mixed group of individuals through different cities.
I can
Yes.
answer from Troutdale staff if that's okay, Matt.
Yeah.
Yes, it will go through our planning commission and city council once there is a draft ready to adopt.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and something I think we talked about last time is that we want to try to incorporate some more information about what the main streets on Halsey plan might actually look like, the type of improvements that we might see coming out of that plan, and the level of specificity that the planning commission and the city council will be able to respond to. It is a plan that will cover all three jurisdictions, but all three jurisdictions will ultimately have a say in what that corridor is going to look like. It's not going to be determined by any one jurisdiction or even by Multnomah County itself.
Thank you.
So corridor C, this is the downtown segment of the historic Columbia River Highway. And I'll just mention briefly, we're sort of grazing over corridor B in part because the projects that are identified in the TSP are largely reflective of what's in the town center plan. And so we're planning on just carrying those forward as they exist today. So corridor C is one where there was a fairly long list within the town center plan about potential improvements along this corridor. A handful of those improvements stood out as being potentially problematic to, I believe, this committee, as well as others. And so we came up with a slightly different alternative for the downtown plan. That said, through some of the conversations we had with the county and more recently, we've sort of knocked around the idea of not necessarily calling out any specific projects in the TSP for this segment of historic Columbia River Highway, but rather identifying the need for a further planning. And I think that stems from a few different places. One is that we recognize that there are a few things that we want to get out of this. We want to get wider sidewalks. We want to get we want to be able to maintain bike lanes, on-street parking, bike lanes, and 2 travel lanes. But the widths of those things and the potential trade-offs between some of the widths of those things is something that still needs to be further refined. Multnomah County has their standards, and they have identified some potential constraints associated with like transit and other users of the system. And so we need to be mindful of those things. But there are certainly opportunities to get all the things that we want out of the system. I think it's just about recognizing some of those trade-offs and looking at what is in the dark, looking at what's there today, what's been developed in recent years, and ultimately what's needed in downtown. So I think currently what we have in the red lines is a detailed project. But one thing we talked about with the county was to move more towards a refinement plan of potential opportunities on this corridor. Open that up for discussion with you guys. Unless you all like the idea of a potential refinement plan for downtown.
Any comments? Doesn't look like it, Matt.
All right. I'm sorry, Shelley, what was that?
I don't think we have anybody commenting, Matt.
All right, good deal. So then with that, because we heard that from the county, and it seems like you guys don't have thoughts on, or not that you don't have thoughts on it, but that you don't have any issues with that, then the project here will largely look more like a refinement plan than a specific plan for downtown. All right. So corridor D, this is the eastern portion of historic Columbia River Highway that goes roughly from Depot Park down to Glen Otto, or even the bridge there. And this is another one. This was largely unaddressed as part of the TSP, in part because of some right-of-way constraints or some perceived right-of-way constraints. And the town center plan had kind of a mix of things for this corridor as well. So I think what we ultimately landed on was a few different key features that we wanted to see here. One was sidewalk facilities on the east side of the roadway, wider sidewalk facilities on the west side of the roadway, as well as some potential opportunities to enhance the bike lanes and reduce travel speeds on the road. Somebody in this group, I believe, mentioned that we need things like a speed sign, potentially lowering the speeds if possible, but otherwise traffic calming features along this roadway. And I think because it doesn't show up anywhere else, one of the other things that we talked about as this group and something that ultimately was also incorporated into the TSP was as a continuation of the pedestrian facilities through Glen Auto Park and onto or at the Sandy River Bridge there. So something that wasn't necessarily in the previous TSP or in the town center plan, but something that we heard that we wanted to make sure got incorporated in there was providing that continuous pedestrian facility. Any thoughts, questions, comments on that one?
David?
I think you're muted, David.
Thank you. Matt, a little clarification, if I may. If I remember reading the draft correctly, that the bike lanes from the train depot to Glen Auto was going to have in the plan to have on-street bike lanes the entire way on both sides.
That is correct. The only caveat to that is going to be the bridge itself. So I believe the bridge is going to is going to stay the way that it is. We momentarily had a new bridge project in there for consideration, and it came back out again because my understanding is that this was something that was reviewed not all that long ago, and in the process they reconstructed both the bridge over I think that's Beaver Creek there, and as well as the adjacent bicycle and pedestrian bridge immediately to the south there. And so because they just reconstructed that bridge and because they built that separate bridge for bicycles and pedestrians, they're not excited about adding in another project to replace the bridge yet again to provide on-street bike lanes and sidewalks across that bridge connection.
Okay, I can understand that. I just think we need to show that there'd be signage approaching that particular bridge that says bikes in traffic or bikes in the lane, meaning that the bike lane is going to show going over the bridge in the traffic lane, like they do in other locations where they have construction and things like that.
Great.
Thank you.
Melissa?
Are there any thoughts? Don't let you. Sorry.
That's okay.
First time here. So are there any thoughts about the congestion at Glen Auto Park with parking and whatnot, and different activities? Like I think the art walk, it's pretty congested in there, and any thoughts about solving some issues there?
We have not talked about how to resolve the issues in Glen Auto Park parking lot. To the extent that we have talked about it, it was within the context of transit and how TriMet has had challenges circulating through the lot because of congestion. That has not come up. Melissa, I hate to drop one like that on you, but if the city has ever had any plans or has any current plans to address that, is there anything you could say about that one?
Parks Advisory Committee?
Yes.
Sorry, I think Chair Reynolds, I think you had some thought on that.
Parks Advisory Committee is actually discussing that quite heatedly right now. And we're hoping to come to some proposal for city council on that. I don't know, David, when someday. someday soon, but we are discussing that with hopes of at least providing a partial solution to some of the congestion in the parking lot there.
I noticed that across the street, there's property for sale. It's probably not zoned for parking, but just one who wish. I think that's, meant for condos or something like that, but.
Anything to contribute that you remember there, David? From Parks?
My brain says we didn't come to any definite conclusion. Part of the constraints is in our discussions about being more effective on traffic flow in and out of the parking lot, who gets to pay for that? Because a lot of activity when there's a citywide event, everybody's going to park down there. Is probably not going to be fees, but we've been discussing fees so that generally if people go park there, there's a cost for, well, like some people park in there with a bike thing and take off down the historic highway and they're gone all day. And they take up a spot. And if there's 10 or 12 people doing that in a group, there's a big bunch of people taking up spots. And so we're trying to figure out a way to better manage flow in and out of the lot, but not be restrictive of the property taxpayers in the city that have already paid for that park, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our discussion is helpful in one way and not helpful in another, and we're still trying to iron it out.
But it is being discussed, if that's helpful.
Great. Well, I'm going to charge ahead here. So corridor E is Buxton Road, and the extent of Buxton Road shown here is, I believe, the only project that was shown in the existing transportation system plan was to establish on-street bike lanes or along the roadway. Has not been done today, despite some of the available pavement width out there. I think in part because the city recognizes, or maybe the county recognizes, the need for on-street parking in some areas, and the need to evaluate the trade-offs between those things. Nevertheless, that's continues to be something that's in the TSP, is to establish on-street bike lanes on Buxton Road. But it's added the emphasis of also evaluating the potential for experimental streets for electric bikes, scooters, microtransit, and golf carts. This is a conversation that we had with Multnomah County, and Multnomah County asked the potentially obvious question there of, what does that mean for the roadway? What does that mean for the potential improvements along the roadway? And I think that's another one that could be left somewhat up in the air, largely because things like electrical bicycles, scooters, and to some extent microtransit and golf carts could all still continue to be accommodated on the roadway with on-street bike lanes. And a lot of those things are more on the programmatic side that would be implemented either by the city on more on a holistic basis, or by potentially a third party vendor that would also apply on a citywide basis. So things like golf carts are perfectly allowable to drive on a road like Buxton Road. I think, in fact, there are very few roads in Troutdale where you could not potentially drive a golf cart. Might be a little different for scooters and bicycles and things like that, but there continues to be an express need to provide bike lanes on this facility. And I'll pause there for a moment, but I'll also mention that does not necessarily preclude the potential to provide a parallel facility, whether it's on Dora or on Sandy Avenue.
Thank you, Matt. I want to call on Will first. He had some
Hey,
questions.
Matt, thank you. And maybe there's somebody else can help me answer this. Can you help me line up when it says like updated B2, added B20 to say these things? Is in the actual document, you're finding these spots, is this part of a red line that's being produced by adding this in here, that we're gonna have a chance to then look at the full document or see how these particular things like line in there compared to what's currently there? I guess what I'm trying to say is, for me, I guess I'm having a hard time seeing where these things are getting like plugged in and how they kind of fit into the bigger framework. And I apologize if I'm being dense on this.
No, I think that's a good question, and this is one in retrospect that I think we were trying to bring something in from the town center plan that didn't necessarily have a clear and concise way of doing that. Buxton, again, was one of the only roads that was really identified in the TSP as one of these experimental type streets for these different treatments. But I
apologize. I guess what I mean is on each one of these, it says TSP updates, and we're updating, like on quarter A, update P5 and M6, added V19. Is this saying what you have done then? Is this basically like a recap of what has been done to the document? Is that what you see what I'm getting at?
I think so. So Melissa, you're probably referring to the slides, the presentation slides that show all the different updates to the TSP. It's kind of like a table that shows all those.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, that is, and thank you, Will. Exactly. That is intended to be a kind of a concise representation of, yes, what has been updated in the TSP. So Melissa, remind me, did they see the red lines?
So what we had in our packet is chapter 4. This doesn't have the red lines in it. I did send that to our PMT team, the county and the city.
Okay.
But I did want to give one quick reminder, if it's been a little while since you looked in the original town transportation system plan, there is one code that will help you find where these projects are. So the B stands for bicycle, the P stands for pedestrian, and the M is our
Motor vehicle.
Motor vehicle, right? So that's one way that will help you find it in chapter 4. And those are the references to its place on the action plan and the master plan.
Yeah, I think, and unless, I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I'd say that the red lines, if they haven't already, then they could potentially be made available to you guys to take a look at. It's there's a couple ways you could do it. You got to look at it in Word format and just see exactly what we've been doing there, or we could create a PDF of the red line version. And I think it helps it really makes things stand out a little bit more when you see it in the red line format, because you can see which projects have been removed, what's been added, and what's been modified based on kind of what we've been talking about.
I will follow up by sending that tomorrow to everybody, so you'll have it. We have some time for follow-up comments a week, so that will be available for you to reference. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay. Sorry, I'm taking my own notes tonight, so I'm moving a little bit slower.
Quick question with that and with these are from comments that we made in this room, or is this comments from your talks with Multnomah County, or where's the input for these changes coming from, I guess?
Yeah, and great question as well. So from a variety of places, the bulk of the changes largely came directly from our interpretation, if you will, of the vision and the goals that are identified in the town center plan, and how those would ultimately affect the transportation system plan. And so if there was like a vision for a change to a roadway, whether it's to emphasizes additional bicycle or pedestrian or other types of facilities, then we're developing specific projects from the town center plan and putting it in the TSP. Sometimes it's a little more explicit. Other times it's a little more nuanced and requires us to interpret it. So that's the bulk of the changes, is stuff just coming right in from the town center plan. Other changes are changes that, yes, we've talked with the advisory committees about, both you folks as well as the county.
Okay, thank you. The reason why I ask is because I kind of recall from town center that we thought we threw a bunch of maybe ideas out there. And this to me now is stating that, I will quote, make Buxton Road an experimental street, like do this. I mean, I guess the way that I'm reading that, it seems like it went from conceptual idea to now we're going to definitely do this, is I guess the way I'm reading that. I'm finding it hard where that discussions happen, where that's been fully vetted with the public, and all that. And I guess that's my main concern, is that some of these things are being thrown in without a full discussion with the public input. Maybe that's gonna happen, I suppose, in the higher levels, but I guess then what I'm saying then is that discussion is being taken out of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And this is more, I guess, like a, hey, we're showing you what we're doing sort of thing. And I guess that's just coming to that understanding. So thank you for helping me walking through that, Matt.
I think this one is a little bit trickier just because it's still not specifically clear on what the end result is going to be. And Melissa and Chris, I think I saw that you were on here a moment ago. This might be one that we need to workshop a little bit more in terms of how this actually gets implemented through the TSP. If it's if we want something specific in the TSP that speaks to these types of things, then we might want to either, it might come out as like kind of more along the lines of policy, like the city would be supportive of implementing these types of things within the city. So things like electric bicycles and e-scooters and microtransit and golf carts. So it's more, if the city itself isn't going to be implementing these types of programs, then and most likely going to be working with a third-party vendor on any one of these things, then we would probably want, again, show some sort of a policy support for those things, or identify specific infrastructure improvements that would be needed to support or accommodate these things. May also be some associated development code changes that would need to be made to allow for things like scooters to use bike lanes and for golf carts to drive in the streets.
Matt, Chris would like to comment too, please.
Is that Chris Demjan? Chris? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing, because I want to also, just for disclosure, Will was on our town center committee, as was Diane and Dave Wheaton as well. So hopefully they have some recollection of this. This was admittedly a corridor we didn't talk as much about, but my recollection of our discussion when we were talking about Buxton was revolving around two facts. One is, if you consider Buxton when you're going from basically the top of the hill, 7th, 8th, 7th, down all the way to the historic highway and that intersection. If you've ever paid attention to the width of the pavement and notice that we don't have a striped bike lane, we don't really even have a striped parking lane. You have a pretty wide expanse of asphalt. And part of it is just geographic. Who wants to really pedal up Buxton Hill? Who wants to maybe feel safe parking their car with their e-brake on, and hopefully you remember to turn your tires so your car doesn't run away on it. So there are practical considerations about Buxton that we thought were challenging, but also presented an opportunity. So when you're dealing with a roadway of that width, the idea that you could experiment, and that's the term I think we used, with some ideas and some paint to see whether or not this roadway, without much energy and attention and construction activity, could be reimagined to maybe better serve general mobility in the town center. So that was precisely why the town center plan called out the ideas of e-bikes, because that's going to make it easier to pedal up the hill, or scooters, or golf carts, which I know is obviously contentious. But the fact also, from 4th through 8th, you do, and apart from a couple of driveways, you do not have curb cut on that. So you basically have almost 1,000 feet uninterrupted of siding on the west side of the street that you could maybe try something out. Maybe the approach is, if we're concerned about getting the cart before the horse, about doing something before we have further study, maybe the approach is what we do like what we just talked about with downtown. We create a refinement plan, or we commission a further study of it to really look at it and show people what it might look like on the map. You need X number of feet, and then how would you separate it from the travel lanes? So maybe, and Matt, I guess that's a question back to you, like maybe there is a refinement plan level rewording what's being called. I just wanted, just for the CAC's benefits, you had the historic context. That's why it has arrived in your lap worded the way it was, because that was at least the genesis of the thought behind this corridor and figuring out what to do with it.
When you say refinement plan, that means like for downtown, we're gonna say, hey, in this transportation system, we're gonna say a refinement plan in there, which means we're doing the work before the TSP gets done or after work gets done.
Neither. What you're doing is you're committing to further study.
Okay.
You don't know what the precise solution is. You don't know if you're going to install or strike bike lane, that you're going to increase the sidewalk width by 2 feet or 10 feet.
Gotcha.
You're saying there's further study.
Okay. That to me makes it a little more palatable with a lot of the things in here, because in the way some of these are written, just in this like little brief thing, it went really quick from, hey, these are some cool ideas we kind of threw around in town center, to now all of a sudden we're having scooters and golf carts on Buxton, or ripping up the sidewalks tomorrow, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's with anything like the TSP though is effectively a list of ideas and projects that you would like to commission and get going. A lot of these things, particularly from the town center, will require further study, especially Halsey Street. That's why we have a whole grant application to consider that. So the wording, frankly, and I think that's kind of our nature, is if we have projects identified in a plan, you have generally an idea of what you want to do. And admittedly, with these ones, there's still a few unanswered questions or a few policy discussions that are still yet to be had.
Now, I know in previous documents it said preferred alternatives. Are those also being implemented into this, saying this is the preferred alternative for this road, or was that more for us to consider? Because without additional public input, some of these things may not be the public's preferred alternative if they, had the open forum. I suppose that, is that preferred alternative getting put into this in the list of options, or is it still going to be open to further refinement studies?
I'll let Melissa or Matt answer that, but what I would say is this is a public forum. How many members of the public admittedly are on this call tonight, apart from you fine folks? This is the public forum.
So let's have Matt jump in about tech memo 2, and then where we went from the preferred alternatives to this update.
Yeah, and Will, you're right that the preferred alternatives was, so we started off with the town center plan, and then the TSP, and then occasionally something else that the advisory committee or the city had brought forward. We evaluated those alternatives and then identified what we interpreted as the preferred alternative based on a set of criteria. That preferred alternative is something that we shared with you guys last time as part of Tech Memo 2, and came away with and ultimately used to develop this list of projects for the TSP. It's I think part of the assumption that we had coming into this was that the town center plan was a public document, was developed with public input, and that was ultimately adopted by the city council as well. And so the ideas and the vision that was in that plan went through the public process. That this committee's involvement in this was essentially going to be sufficient to ensure that that vision was being carried into the TSP carefully and with consideration to the intention of that plan.
Thank you.
So I guess, and so and then to kind of reiterate what Chris said, is just recognizing that this is a larger committee, and that we still will go through planning commission and city council before we get ultimate adoption of this. And one last thing, Melissa, and then on top of all that, the TSP itself, being a planning document, is one that tends to take some time to get implemented. Projects continue to be scrutinized, and as they get put forward, they usually have some sort of additional process for getting public input on those things as well. So I'd say that the opportunity for ultimate input on this is certainly is never really over.
David, did you still have a question?
Thank you, Shelley. I was going to talk to Matt about the street width of Buxton because, you know, from the S curve to roughly 8th Street on 7th, it's fairly wide and plenty of room for striping anything. But you start going downhill from 7th and Buxton gets quite narrow. But my concern was, and I think Chris addressed it, was that we don't go 20 years and still not have any striped anything like we have the last 20 years. And there seems to me that we need to address that there, as an experimental street, there is an intent to provide stripes and signage so that electric craft vehicles or whatever can use those lanes, plus have 2 lanes for cars. Something that says something's going to happen.
David, I tend to agree with you on that one. And so going back to what would potentially remain in the TSP is to stripe bike lanes on this roadway, but also consider some of these alternative, we'll call them alternative travel modes. I agree with you for a variety of reasons. One is that having that big, wide open space does just simply encourage higher speeds, higher travel speeds. And so using striping is something as cheap as paint that does wear away over time or can be removed relatively easily. It would be sufficient to like narrow down the roadway and essentially slow traffic as it's coming into downtown. What I was trying to show whenever I had this aerial up here is that this is just Troutdale Road. It's got a very similar cross section a little further down. People tend to park here, people tend to bike here. There is sufficient width, but having these nice narrow pavement widths, and this is something like probably 12 feet. I don't see where my measurement's coming from, but that's I think what was envisioned in the original TSP was really just to continue this sort of striping down Troutdale Road, as opposed to just leaving it this big wide open space. All right. Well, we do have a fair amount of ground to cover. I think what I think I'd like to do with this one is maybe workshop this just a little more with the city and come up with a cleaner way of describing what this is. If folks have issues with the idea of making this another refinement plan, then I'd be curious about that. Otherwise, the project that's in there right now, the project that is would potentially be carried forward in the TSP is bike lanes with consideration to some experimental type treatments. All right. Thank you, Zach. Love the thumbs up feature. All right. Corridor G, Sandy Avenue. Similar type of conversation where we had a variety of different options coming. So the TSP was fairly simplistic. It was providing, just kind of maintaining the roadway as it was, providing some shared roadway pavement markings just to reemphasize the potential for bikes on the roadway. There were beyond the town center plan. I can't remember which one happened first, if it was the town center plan or the PSU study, but they largely came to a similar conclusion, which was that we've got some potential, I'll call it potential for now, potential seismic issues along the roadway, just some general cost constraints with bringing the roadway fully up to standard. And so there was an idea of eliminating one travel lane at a minimum, another idea of eliminating motor vehicle traffic in both directions, maybe with the exception of during inclement weather events. And then other ideas about potentially providing some more enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities on the roadway. Ultimately, what we came to and what would be what's identified in the red lines is to reduce the roadway to one-way access and provide multimodal facilities. And then there is a long-term project. I think the first few projects, there's a long-term project to complete a resiliency project along Sandy Avenue, essentially to maintain it as, I think the idea there is to bring it back to 2 lanes. So it's not to close it. There would not be a project in here to close the roadway. There would be a more, I'll call it a near-term project to reduce it to one-way traffic and to provide enhanced multimodal facilities. And then a long-term project to rebuild the roadway or reconstruct the roadway for 2-way traffic again.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sorry, I can't raise my
No,
hand.
go ahead.
Thank you. For the group, I wanted to share some information. I know we got finally were able to get the geotechnical report on Monday. Thank you, Melissa, very much. You're right on that when we emailed you. So thank you very much. I know it's something we've been asking for quite some time, is to be able to take a look at that, kind of understand what is happening there. I'm not sure if everyone had the opportunity to take a look at that one, but I want to highlight a couple things on there and just kind of show, is it possible to share screen?
Yep, that will be fine. We should do.
Share desktop application. I think desktop. I've never done this before.
Oh, if you do application, you can select a specific.
Screen in here.
Mhm. I think if you do desktop, it'll be everything. So that
Like
will
that?
work. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. This one? Sure. Is that there? No. What am I doing wrong? That's up now.
Yep, try that again. Just hit share
No.
there at the bottom.
Share.
Mhm.
Yeah, hit desktop.
Desktop.
Share.
Sure.
We might have to
Oh, there we go.
permission.
I did.
Is that up?
I have.
There we go.
There you
Okay,
There we go.
All right, thanks, everyone. I appreciate you here. I'm gonna have to try to figure out how to pull this up. Okay. So a big part of the discussion about Sandy Road has been about the possible seismic activity and kind of what's going on there. We didn't really have any of this information until Monday, so happy to be able to share this with you guys. They did go through it. It's quite a process. You haven't had a chance. There's a bunch of stuff in here that they go through. It's quite thorough. And I'll break it down to the basic nuts and bolts of what their suggestions were. And that is that they basically suggested that it has been since at least 2001, prior to 2001, that there's been any potential seismic activity there. And one of the main things that they suggested was that the roadway had some cracking in it and some shoulder issues there and so on. And they could not determine when or how it actually happened. And their suggestion, if I can find this one here. Let me pull this up. I apologize, you guys. Visual distress, the pavement observed during a site reconnaissance indicates some mechanism is causing shifting material underlying the roadway. The mechanism causing distress in the pavement are likely due to a combination of the sloughing. These mechanisms have been discussed in previous studies. As described earlier, we do not have sufficient data to identify if the movement of the slope is presently occurring or at what rate it is incurring. We do not have sufficient data from a long enough time period to provide an informed opinion on the potential slope movement. Therefore, at this time, our recommendation is to continue to monitor the condition of the roadway, especially during the winter months, and possibly identify potential slope movement. Monitoring should include visual, da, 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 da. And then down here is where they came up with what their actual recommendation for this road is. And to me, that just makes a lot more sense than trying to put in some sort of thing. We're going to take the road away and then potentially fix something that we don't even have studies or information enough to know if needs fixed. We can just go down to the bottom here and take a look at some of their pictures. One of which is, sorry, I don't want to give anybody I will also want to say that I have a vested interest in this. This particular road goes right behind my house. If I didn't explain that before, I want to apologize. So please understand the reason why this is so important for me, because I've lived over here for 21 years and it affects me. Anyway, this is what was done in 2018 when they took the picture. Went down there the last couple of days and scoped it out again. I was like, oh, this doesn't look the same as what I thought. And I did see that it had been paved recently. I contacted Public Works and they confirmed that in 2020, so now we're 2 years later, the road was paved. And so in the last 2 years, at least, we have data according to what they use as their potential concern to show that in at least the last 2 years, we've had absolutely no movement whatsoever. And if we use their information, it suggests that potentially since 2001, they don't know any, it just had to have happened before 2001. We're looking at least 25 years without any movement in this slope. This new information caused me to rethink why this has been such a priority. Is there some other reason why this is being pushed to close down this road? And I'll speak to that potentially in my concerns and comments at the end of the meeting. But I wanted to share that now that we have this new information, that the actual recommendation from the professionals, the engineers with licenses and so on that have actually graduated from college, their suggestion is to do nothing and monitor. And it's the cheapest option at about $6 grand in 2018. It's probably tripled that price now. But also wanted to have us, how do I unshare this? Stop share. Also reconsider when we see this PSU study. I don't really think it's a study. It's a class project where they were given some information and given 4 choices of what to do, and they ran with it. Don't want to diminish their efforts or where they're at in their career, but there's a difference between a professional and a classroom project. And I think that's what the PSU study is. And I think there's a lot of weight being given to the PSU study based off of, in my opinion, now somewhat not bad information, but the information that was maybe dramatized a little more than it potentially should have been, having now the opportunity to see the geotech report. So that was not necessary for UMAP, but more for the group to understand this one particular aspect of this plan. And yeah, I'll have more to share in concerns and comments and whatnot. So turn it back to you guys. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, just another comment on that also. And just to fully disclose, I also back up to that. So I have a vested interest in that also. And I do agree with Will. I think the PSU study was a great piece of information, but then having this additional information, I think looking at some of those recommendations for the report, I just wonder if there's more information out there, because they do seem to not come to the same conclusion. And so just wondering if there is more information, because it's very odd that there was such emphasis put on that PSU study if it wasn't necessarily based in fact or started at some point. So.
Thank you, Twyla.
Sorry, I was muted there for a little while. Chris, I would actually defer to you. I think you may have been around when the PSU study was done. Melissa, I'm not sure if you were with the city just yet when maybe that project got initiated. I think from my read of it, and admittedly, it was more of a scan of what their ultimate recommendations were. I gleaned from that study that they were operating under the assumption that the roadway had issues and those issues needed to be addressed. And this is what their solution was based on those issues. And so I think everybody was probably working much like we were throughout this process under the assumption that the roadway, something needed to happen differently than what's happening out there today. So I mean, we could put it to this, we could put it back to this group. We could also just continue to workshop this with the smaller group. But ultimately, the current TSP would, if the current TSP project were to continue, if the roadway would stay basically the same exact way that it is today. The only difference is the current TSP identifies shared roadway pavement markings, which are those little Sharo symbols, if you guys have seen those around town. That is the current project identified in the TSP. The updates that we were recommending, that again largely reflected what was in the town center plan, what was in the PSU study, was to reduce it to one-way traffic. If you don't feel like that's necessary today, or even within the horizon of the TSP, which is 20 years, then we can certainly keep it as it is.
Chair, may I provide additional commentary? So I'm just going to, for the folks, I just pulled up the town center plan. So I think this might be instructive as to why it was highlighted as a project and why further investigation, particularly from PSU, came about. And then we can return back to modern times. But quoting, the major concerns for the corridor revolve around the maintenance and the long-term durability, which at the time we didn't have all the information that Will had shared. The long-term durability of the road, being able to accommodate not only automotive traffic on a hillside, there will be little ability to widen the road in the event we wanted to create additional space for pedestrians or bikes without significant expense or impact to the hillside, which could further aggrieve the concerns for erosive conditions or landslides. So what it boils down to is the larger question: how, if I live on top of the hill, if I want to get down to the bottom of the hill, how do I do it perhaps safely or comfortably? So again, we're talking about big picture mobility considerations. Buxton is what it is. It's a steep slope. Dora and Harlow are too, and they don't even interconnect. Sandy, for many people, especially in winter, is your way to get down the hill safely. And certainly if you're on a bike going uphill or downhill, it's certainly a lot gentler. But there's also very little room for error, and not everybody is comfortable riding a bike, in the street. So it comes down, honestly, folks, to a values proposition. If you want to expand that mobility possibility on that corridor, great. Understand it comes with a cost, and understand you're working on a hillside. The cheaper option, rather than rebuilding the road, is potentially to close a lane down. If there's not general community consensus for it, and the engineers are saying leave it alone, then leave it alone. But here's what I'll say too, and this is another important thing. A lot of times when you put things in these plans, your ability and access to get money, if God forbid something actually did happen, if you had a seismic event that really hampered it, or if you had a significant rain event that really actually undercuts maybe the thing, or maybe you get a monitoring report that says, "Oh, actually, we're starting to see some problems here." There's funding out there for resiliency that come from state, federal, and even regional sources. If you don't have a project listed that could help you in these CYA moments, you may not be having eligibility for that funding. So there is potentially value to leave something in, or at least leave the corridor identified in that way. But at the end of the day, folks, this is your town and your prioritization of what's important. You're not going to break our hearts if you strike out Corridor G recommendations from this TSP. We have better information now, but that's why it was in there in the first place.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And I think that's mostly what I was trying to do, is bring in the new information.
It's great. Thank you for doing that.
Like we were like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. We need to do
Slope is
something now.
falling.
look and we see that we're looking at least 25 years without any movement, maybe it's not as pressing as we once thought. And I think it's a bit of a false dilemma to say there's only two choices, you just close it down and run it one way, whatever. I think that potentially, if I were to suggest a solution that makes the most sense in my head, would be to recognize it as a potential future problem and say, hey, we want to move forward with creating multimodal paintings to like, hey, cars and skateboards and all this are going to be on the same road here in the meantime, but in the eventuality that we do see slippage testing and so on, that we have maybe these are some potential options that we would consider if the slope becomes too dangerous for two-way traffic.
I think part of it too, with how we wrote it in the report and how then it also got translated to the PSU study. If you recall, we had slippage that closed down the Robbins Way trailhead, which is pretty darn close to this location. So I think that was also a fresh memory.
Correct.
How extensive of a problem might this hillside be? So I think there was probably some of that illustrated some of the commentary and the approach at that time.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So I don't know, I thank you guys for hearing me out. And yeah, I guess that would be my suggestion, is to list it in there as, hey, this is potential future problem, and we're not seeing anything now. These are potential things that we could do if we see a problem happening. That way it's in there to cover your CYA sort of listing, but at the same time, we're not doing anything that impacts that road in one way or another. If anything, then we're potentially painting stuff on there that says, hey, skateboards, bikes, and cars are all going to be in its path. So share the road. Be nice.
So I think what I'm hearing, to repeat this back, because I would like to have something specific to put into the plan. Right now, the plan has reduced the road to one-way access and provide multimodal facilities. And then there's a secondary project to complete a resiliency project and essentially reconstruct the roadway. So the first one, you would like to make that contingent upon there being an identified issue along the roadway. Acknowledge the potential for an issue and say, here is a potential solution for the issue, which is to reduce it to one-way traffic. Am I hearing that correctly? So rather than just saying reduce it to one-way traffic as the project, put a caveat in there that says, if there is an issue, or then reduce to one-way traffic.
That's what I would suggest. That way we're not pursuing something, that we're not needing to do, and potentially it doesn't look like an opportunity for outside, interest to say, hey, this project's outlined, we want you to do this. And I think that's part of a bigger thing that I think needs to be addressed regarding this whole thing that I will personally discuss towards the end of the meeting after you're taking care of that.
Good. And any issue with also keeping the resiliency project in the TSP?
Would that also be under the, hey, if we see problems, then these are things that we've adjust as things we can do?
Well, it could be consolidated to one project where if you see an issue, either rebuild the roadway or limit it to one-way traffic.
Depending upon availability of funds, timing, and current public sentiment at that time. Makes sense.
Any other thoughts on this one? Melissa, it sounded like you were about ready to jump in there.
Oh, I was pointing over at Twyla. I see that he was looking at me. I thought you had another.
No, I think that meets all the needs, and the striping, and I think will also help with safety for the high traffic of kids on that area.
Great.
This is Diane. I only have one comment. I haven't walked down that path lately, so I don't know the condition of it. And if there is an opportunity to widen without obstructing traffic, do you know what I mean? If it's going to be also identified as a safe walking path, I'm not sure right now what the width is of it, and if it's flat, or if it's if there's any other issues with the current sidewalk.
It's pretty narrow. I think it's maybe 5 feet, if not even 4 feet in some lengths. So maybe not quite up to city standard. As far as the width of the roadway itself goes, I think it probably varies based on overlays and things. And I don't know if there's much of an opportunity to widen it further, particularly on the hillside, well, on either side.
Yeah, if y'all haven't been down there lately, go for a walk down there. Go visit the school, check it out. It's brand new schools right there. It's a gorgeous reed line spot. There's a lot of native vegetation and native flowers, wildflowers and stuff that are still there from hundreds of years ago. It's a really neat spot. And yeah, the roadway is absolutely perfect, freshly paved 2 years ago. Sidewalk is regular width sidewalk. And I don't believe that, even though the steepest topography is right there at 4th and Sandy, the rest is pretty gently sloping, more or less. But I don't think that there's much room to be able to widen without taking big chunks
Yeah.
out of a wall and like
Yeah,
huge
I- yeah,
retaining wall
don't
on
want
one
it.
side.
Thanks.
All right. I'm going to use that to move on to corridor H. So corridor H is the downtown URA connections. It actually includes both a bridge, or motor vehicle bridge, as well as a bicycle and pedestrian bridge. So we have 2 projects in here. One of them is a new project to construct a bicycle and pedestrian bridge that begins right here at the intersection of Harlow and Historic Wind River Highway and continues over into the confluence site. The other project is a project to build the vehicle bridge. Actually, I think we're calling it, what do we call it? I think we were specific in saying an at-grade rail crossing from Kibling Avenue that crosses the railroad tracks at grade and continues into the confluence site as well. So it's not shown on this map for some reason, but essentially another connection right through there. And Chris and Melissa, I'm sorry if I should know this off the top of my head, but I think that the bike ped bridge is shown in the action plan. So as in something that could potentially be funded over the 20-year horizon, whereas the motor vehicle bridge is shown in the master plan, which includes more of the aspirational projects that we want to just make sure continue to move forward.
That's right, with the action plan and master plan designation.
Thank you. Any thoughts on these guys? All right. So on to the sites. So again, there's quite a few more sites than what we've actually identified with potential transportation infrastructure improvements. But we've got all the sites from the town center plan that either had a vision for improvements or identified specific improvements included. Site 1 is located here at Depot Park. And there were a few things identified here for Site 1, the most significant of which was a bike transit hub at Depot Park itself. This is sort of a unique, more of a kind of like a modern day feature that's been rebranded as a way to connect bicyclists with transit facilities. And yeah, there's this one identified right here at Depot Park. Any thoughts on this?
Is that already in the works? I guess the transit hub, bike hub, isn't that already in the works?
The bike hub is already in the works. We've had funding for it. We have some of the materials to construct it in already. The visitor center itself has just been redesigned and reopened. And this summer season, it is being used as a shuttle stop for reaching the waterfall corridor.
Great. Sites 6 and site 7, these are site 6 being over, I believe, hopefully I don't have these backwards. I believe site 6 is here on the west side, site 7 is over here on the east side. Looking to Melissa to see if I'm wrong on that one. Both of them collectively have projects related to the continuation of Second Street, so a pathway from Second Street over to 257th. And then, of course, the Second Street Bridge, the pedestrian and bicycle bridge over 257th. So the projects, both of which would be in the bicycle or pedestrian action plan, is to construct a new pedestrian and bicycle bridge over 257th and provide that trail connection. Any thoughts on those? David?
Thank you. I don't recall reading this in any of the graphics. Is there anything about showing Second Street as a bike path and having striped bike lanes on Second Street? If that bridge goes in, it becomes a bike corridor. Second Street needs to become a bike corridor.
It's a good point.
And I can add some context, if I may.
Sure.
David, I think that's one where we, and you recall since you were on the committee, when we talked about Corridor C, the downtown portion of historic Limber Highway. If there was a vision, if that bridge were to become a reality, and I would agree with you, Second Street would then become more of a preferred bike way, if you will. That ties into whatever you might envision for the future of your Main Street. Because if you're directing more bike traffic to go on a parallel street one block up, do you really need dedicated bike lanes on your Main Street? So I think how we were trying to approach that with the idea of signing and signaling and striping Second Street was actually part of Corridor C and any sort of refinement plan that could come out of that effort. So it wasn't listed uniquely. That was my recollection anyway. Melissa, I don't know if you had a
It was combined with Corridor C, and so I think that may be how it's sort of fallen off the map here, because we also did express, there were a lot of comments saying that we wanted to keep bike lanes on historic Columbia River Highway, although it is possible to have parallel bike routes as well. So there can be, bikes for people that are going to the businesses in downtown, and we can keep that. That was expressed as important. We can also have bike lanes on Second Street that connect directly to the bridge.
Well, I saw this as important to, one, have clarity on where people walk to and bike to, particularly to the other bike path from the Depot Park there, because they may want to turn left and go to Depot Park to enjoy a beverage or a coffee or something. But more importantly, we talked about in the town center meetings about the new standard on signs and letterheads and things, and having wayfaring signs. And I think it'd be important to incorporate that into that bike route, to say, okay, go left here to the depot, go right to something, go left for coffee.
Yeah, agreed that the currently, and just to sort of reiterate what's been said here, is that the Greenway, we may have lost sight a little bit of establishing Second Street as a bikeway or greenway. I can't remember how it's characterized in the town center plan, in part because of the desire to maintain bike lanes on historic Limber River Highway. But you're right, with this trail and with this bridge connection and the connection even further over to Halsey Street, that we would want something to reemphasize bikes here. Another thing they might need to think about here is where you would then want to direct bicyclists back onto historic Limber River Highway. Because presumably, if you're coming from the east and you're traveling up here, you're not going to connect to Second here. You're going to connect to Second via one of these other streets. And it may be that Buxton is the most natural connection, assuming we get bike lanes or something on Buxton. But other options, I was kind of looking at this from a street on Google here, is yeah, there's a lot of different places where it may not be this street because it's one way. It could potentially be, well, maybe it's both of these streets combined. So some other place where you essentially come back over the bridge and onto Second and then tie back into the downtown piece. Yeah, something to think about there.
I'm just thinking about, I see a lot of bikers coming up to 57th and then they turn left, towards downtown Columbia River Highway. So where are they coming from? Are they coming from the Springwater Trail? And then they would need to get back on there? I'm just kind of trying to figure out the flow of where most people are coming in and then how they would get back to that. We know that information.
So we hear you correct. So they're coming south from way past the outlets over the railroad bridge, making a left into downtown from 257.
Yeah. Which is kind of it seems dangerous going up to 57th. I see a lot of people crossing. They don't even use the crosswalk. They cross into the left-hand turn lane through traffic. I see a lot of bikers do that.
I wonder if these are people that are utilizing the parking at the outlet.
Stores, perhaps.
I can't imagine where else they're coming from.
That's one thing on the screen you have up right now, Matt, like the future trail along the riverfront. And
Right.
Could maybe serve as a far more comfortable ride to get in if they're coming either from the outlets or even points north, riding in from FedEx or Amazon or wherever. I mean, that purple line is the 40-mile loop system, ultimately one day. So if they're tourist bikes, then right now they don't have another way to connect with downtown other than the route you were just describing, which is terrifying to think about.
Yeah, it's really scary when you've got a group of 6 of them crossing those 2 lanes of traffic. I guess that just makes me think about this, like, being able to connect them. If they're kind of coming Portland area, if they're big bikers, they're kind of coming Portland area, maybe through Springwater Trail. I don't know if they want to go Halsey, or I just was kind of, obviously we don't know exactly where they're coming from, sure, but maybe some observation could happen, or questioning of various groups or something like that. What would get them back to their destination, or where do they plan on going from the highway, from Columbia River Highway?
Yeah.
And just making sure that this, like a bridge and all that, is inclusive of that and helps with the safety for them returning home and to and from.
Okay.
This is
Sorry.
Diane, and I'm still, I think I brought this up last time. I'm still thinking bikes like to go through the town and get to just feel that energy and stop at one of the shops, the coffee shops. They're always at Celebrate Me Home. I don't know if they started going to Good Coffee or not. But just going through that's fun. And I think it reminds them of shopping experiences. I think, like I said, with the energy, they just enjoy going through that. And I'll just say again, with the bridge, I'm still concerned about, I know that a lot of people, I have seen them now, they are parking in downtown Troutdale, workers and such, then to get to the food carts. To go over there's that huge issue of not enough, perceived not enough parking spaces at the food carts. And then Dave had mentioned, how do you use that bridge? I think you were mentioning, if you're coming from the, I think you mentioned it already, going from the outlets, and then if you wanted to use the bridge you still are going to have to make a turn on the historic highway. You're still going to have to navigate the 257 and the historic highway. And I know we all had mentioned that, but I don't know if it was a consideration that we preferred the bridge to get to connect the confluence site with downtown. That we were, I think, consensus, saying that was possibly our priority to then having the other bridge to the food trucks and then the other thing is 2nd Street to me is we're having parking issues and we haven't had the brewery place open yet on Kibling. And a lot of people are used to parking there to go to the pubs and such on Main Street. So just not sure how that's gonna work out.
Zach?
Hi, yeah, I would also second that. I think it makes more sense, at least at first glance, to first kind of draw a connection to the confluence site in that area to downtown before going the route of the food cart, since they're that bridge connection. I mean, we have a bike lane already on the main street. I would say most people are already on that street, so walking to that corner to go to the food carts, by the time they get to that corner, they might see that there's, a bridge at that point and just cross anyway, because it's, potentially as easy. But on that note as well, with the 2nd Street bike path, I was just wondering how practical it might be to have a connection at the end of that street in the cul-de-sac there, connecting back to the highway as just a bike path rather, or pedestrian bike path rather than, obviously like a through street. I know it's kind of a steep hill afterwards and it's a little outside, but I don't know how, practical that might look. So there's basically like a through, like a through transition 2nd Street back to the historic highway. Does that make sense?
I thought you were suggesting like more of like an at grade pedestrian crossing on 257th, but I don't think sounds like that's not what you're talking about.
Right. So what I was saying, I know I split it up, but basically I was saying I would say priority probably be connection to the confluence site. But if we are going to do bike pathing on 2nd Street as well, with the prior concern of it connecting back to the historic highway at the end of 2nd Street with that cul-de-sac, basically opening up a bike and pedestrian path just down to the highway. Yeah, right there, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, we looked at that. There is, and folks know more about the topography out here than I do. I think there's quite a grade change between this cul-de-sac and down here. That's not to
right.
say
It wouldn't have to be straight. It'd have to probably be slanted along parallel to the street or something. But yeah, I hear you. Because I know the brewery is going in right on that corner there, pretty much close, in between 2nd and Main. But anyway, I just wanted a second. I feel like the confluence site connection would probably take priority.
Thank you, Zach.
Great. So I think we just have a couple more here. The Beaver Creek West. So this is site 11, the Beaver Creek West track, and site 12, the Peninsula track. These effectively make up part of the area located here in the east of the East Historic Limber River Highway. We're looking at adding a new project to construct a trail on or near the roadway along site 11 and Beaver Creek West track, and a connector park at site 12 Peninsula track. So it's a combination of a new pathway in this area as well as a new connector park.
I have a question on that. The golden lines that the site 11, 12 are pointing to with the blue line, that is a proposed pathway, is that correct? That goes down Jackson Park Road?
This dark brown line here.
So it,
No.
no?
Am I wrong on, am I wrong about that, Chris?
So just for clarification context, site 11 and site 12, I think the label might be mislabeled. I'm sorry, we didn't catch that. We're talking about the area between, if you guys recall where the bridge entrance is to the RV park, the one-way bridge, from there down to the Caswell Gallery, west of Beaver Creek, south and west of Beaver Creek is site 11. So basically that frontage along historic Lumber Highway. Site 12 is the peninsula. That's largely the RV park plus a few additional properties. What we were calling for there, and I think maybe the symbology or the label on the map got off, the idea of perhaps, I stress the word perhaps, doing something off street, having maybe a multi-use trail or something like that through the backside of 11, kind of closer along Beaver Creek, or the idea that if 12, yeah, thank you for pulling that up, Matt. In the event things happen regulatory wise with site 12, where it becomes very difficult, if not impossible, to do further development or for the RV park even to remain there, which could happen depending on what the feds do with, it's a long story, but there are some concerns that if something happens and the feds make changes to the flood maps, it might be difficult to maintain certain development. What then? What becomes of that site then? Yeah, this map's actually perfect because that shows kind of those two options right there. So I want to be clear, we're not talking about down Jackson Park Road.
Okay, that's what the lines look like, and I was confused when I looked at it.
Yeah, I think that was, we just missed it on the labeling there, so.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies. So that's basically outlining those possibilities for site improvements there.
Question, is that a statement you said, like in the case of eventuality that this is just a green space, then we want to then consider the peninsula tract sort of thing? Because right now it's all private property, right?
It is all private property and
Either the eminent domain or the.
No. I think what we're saying is that if the regulatory environment changes, because the feds change the maps,
Yeah.
and if there's a situation where, let's say the RV park had to pull out, they couldn't insure themselves anymore, or they elect to sell it, the chances of somebody else buying it and developing it into something different are pretty slim. Not impossible, but slim. So then the question becomes, what do you do with that property? So the town center plan identified it as a potential area. And then I think what we're trying to say in the TSP is how might that, because that it's hard to see on the screen right here for folks in the room, but there are some white dotted lines that show a potential path there west of the river, and some connections there, both off Depot and further down where the existing bridge is, and then also down connecting with Glen Auto Park and where the existing bridge is. So that's what we're talking about there, is how you might interconnect those sites.
I guess that was my question, is that the caveat that needs to get put in, or is that implicitly stated in the way it's laid out? Like, for me, if I own the property exciting and then somebody said, hey, we're gonna build a trail through your place, whether you like it or not, we're putting in our plan, I'd be like, what? So I don't know, maybe I'm just reading it wrong, or maybe it's implicit in the way it is. That's my question.
I think Will, just to reiterate what I think that was Will, or whoever was just speaking. I think what you're asking is, should the project in the TSP say that, like what you said a couple times there, Chris, is if regulatory maps change, then we can go forward with this project.
Yeah, kind of like a thing of what we just discussed with the Sandy Avenue corridor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Landscape shift, so to speak.
Because I'm here to answer these questions after a month or so. So like, we need to have these sort of things in there so that somebody 15, 20 years from now can read this and be like, oh yeah, well, they wanted to do this, let's just go do it. Well, that wasn't exactly what they were talking about.
We know the feeling. There's some things that
Why did they put that in? Always is.
Any other?
I think David put his hand up.
Thank you. I'd like to amend that wording a little bit, that if regulatory changes occur or anything else happens where that property becomes available, then the city could exercise this option. Something to that effect. I don't want to limit it to just one thing.
And oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Or Matt, whoever was talking.
No, go ahead, Chris.
Well, just to be very clear for the committee, there's nothing imminent. We haven't heard from because the RV park is the largest landowner here. We haven't heard anything that they're pulling out or thinking about it. But they are between two rivers, two very dynamic rivers, and they know that there could be some changes to the maps in a few years from now that could affect their business model with the property. So we're not saying it's up for sale yet. We don't want to give that preconceived notion, but that's why it's in the plan, because this could change.
The most, sorry to break in, but I was just thinking the most succinct way to put that might be if the land becomes available. Because I think you're saying if FEMA changes the maps, that might trigger the property owner into being interested in reconfiguring their land. That's a little bit of backstory, maybe doesn't quite need to carry into the TSP. Ultimately, it's if that land is available to us, then we can pursue this connection between our parks.
Okay. Great. Just a couple others here, and it looks like I already specified what this one is. This is that continuous connection between the crossing and 2nd Street. And this one is another connection that we had talked about between, basically between the Beaver Creek Bridge and the Sandy Bridge through Glen Auto Park. So just a couple of more projects that we added there. We're getting kind of close to time here, so I want to, unless you guys have questions about these, I want to jump ahead. I mentioned, so that takes us out of the updates to the project tables and things, and I've got a lot of notes and a lot of your feedback here that I'll get incorporated in there. There are just a couple of more pieces that we want to talk about. One, I think I mentioned early on that there were a couple of policy statements that we wanted to add. One of them here gets added to goal 3, and goal 3 is really speaks to providing balanced multimodal transportation system, reduced number of single trips by single occupancy vehicles. We wanted to add a policy that really speaks to some of the more recent regional policies that are coming into effect, particularly about electric vehicles without specifically stating electric vehicles. So we came up with this policy statement for policy H. It says support implementation of regional policies and strategies to reduce SOV trips, including climate smart strategies aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So it's kind of stacking things up there. I want to let you guys take a look at that and give me your thoughts following up on this meeting. We have a couple more policies here under goal 5. This speaks to some of the things that we've been talking about related to equity. It's policy C, provide travel options that improve access and circulation for all members of the community, including transportation disadvantaged populations. Policy D, engage transportation disadvantaged populations in the planning process and in making decisions about transportation investments. These aren't necessarily things that you are not doing today, that the TSB is not already accomplishing on its own, but these are just simply statements that we want to make to reemphasize our goals towards climate stuff and towards equity stuff. So again, I'd like to maybe preserve a lot of discussion on this until you guys have had a chance to read these, think about them a little bit. On equity, the couple of things here to talk about is that we I know during our last meeting, we talked a fair amount about equity and how we were ultimately incorporating it into the town center plan. So what we wanted to do here is just talk about how we ultimately did look at equity. So first off, I can say that we took the equity focused areas from the regional transportation plan, overlaid it on the transportation system plan with all these new projects from the town center plan, and ultimately looked at how many projects fell into those equity focused areas and how many did not. I think with all the new projects added into the action plan, there still seemed to be a relatively even distribution of projects within the city. So we felt like with that in mind, virtually all the projects, maybe with the exception of the one bridge project into the Confluence site, or not the bridge project, but the at-grade rail crossing into the Confluence site, all of those projects made it into the town center plan, or sorry, pardon me, made it into the action plans of the TSP, which are effectively referred to as the, which essentially are the constrained plans. And so in the end, like of all the new projects that we added, we didn't make any changes to the existing projects, the organization of those in the master plan or in the action plan, and virtually all the new projects went straight into the action plan. Usually this is where I say that regardless of whether the project is in the action plan or in the master plan, any project can move forward at any given point in time. These are just simply stated preferences or priorities by the city, and not necessarily the order in which things will be funded. There's always new opportunities, there's always new funding sources, and any project that's available is up for grabs.
Which M16?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Which one was M16 and then M19 is in there? Or is not?
The exception of the exception plan of M16. Uh-oh. Wonder if we have a little error in our presentation here.
Is this M19 and M19 is not included? Is that what it's supposed to say? Okay.
You're gonna have to give me a second there to double check that, but I think yes, those should both say M19.
And that one was removed because of.
So yeah, those should both say M19. We mean, are you asking why M19 was not included in the action plan as opposed to that?
I think I missed that part of the meeting.
Oh.
Last time. Because it was too difficult to try to get that done, or is there another access that we're looking at for that?
So
Urban renewal area.
Chris and Melissa, it's getting too close to 9 o'clock and my brain is freezing up. I can't remember why we decided to ultimately put this one in the master plan.
The issue with this one is twofold. One is when you're considering, again, we're under the framework now of projects from an equity lens, right? This census tract where it's at is not in the equity index like other areas of the city are. So that's the first issue we have. If we're looking at it from a prioritization and from an idea that we can get regional funding is going to get hard for us to justify. So it's likely that if this connection could be made, it's probably going to have to be financed by private development, not by public dollars. That's the first riddle. The second riddle is this is very specific to the vehicular crossing, the extension of Kibling. we're not talking about here the bridge at Harlow, where the general store where we talked about the bike ped bridge, which maybe could tie into, say, a parking facility or something like that. That's still in there. The problem with this project is if you're considering anything at grade, you're gonna have to go through the railroad. And the railroad does not like at grade crossings, and permitting will be a significant challenge. So even if you had the equity index in your favor there, the reality is, and this is just frankly just truth serum, the reality is it's going to be very difficult to initiate that, certainly at a public level. If a private developer is willing to put the muscle there through a public-private partnership with confluence development, then you can elevate it into the action plan, but understand you're not going to get a lot of funding support for it.
That's still in there, it's just not in the top.
It's in the
action.
master plan, it's not in the action plan. The action plan does have the bridge, that still remains. But you have a lot of challenges with this one.
All right, thank you for the explanation.
So it's still in the plan, just not in the action plan. All right. So the next steps here is to get you folks to review and provide comments on the draft TSP Chapter 4. We're looking for those comments by June 8th. And then we are planning on meeting with, oh, David, you got your hand up. Give me just one quick second here. I'll just rattle this off. I'm planning on meeting with the Planning Commission in July and the City Council in August. Melissa, I think, mentioned early on that she'll be providing the red line version of Chapter 4 for you. I think we can also make the red line versions of the whole TSP available to you if you'd like to see that as well. The changes in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 5, if you'd like to see those. Otherwise, yeah, we'd be looking for any additional and comments, follow-up comments on June 8th. David, you put your hand down. So, oh no, it's back up again.
Yeah, thank you. I'm okay with what you said on that. This has to do with a question that's somewhat outside the scope, I fear, but the overlays that I was reading earlier showed street improvements or vehicular street improvements, excuse me, all the way down to city limits by the college. And it showed Stark Street being 5 lanes. And that was on the west side and 3 lanes on the east side. And what struck me was and I assume those are taken out of the existing transportation plan and no changes have occurred. But what struck me about it was the intersection. There was no recommendation for intersection improvements at Troutdale Road and Stark. And clearly you can't make those kind of changes on the roadways without making a significant change to that intersection. And I thought there ought to be something in there that says there's got to be an intersection improvement there.
I see what you're saying. So there's identifying this as Troutdale as a 3-lane and Stark Street as a 5-lane coming into this Stark Street Troutdale intersection. And there's not any specifically identified intersection improvements at Stark and Troutdale.
Yeah, and in 20 years, that's not going to cut it.
Well, it is a bit outside the scope of this particular project. And I without knowing much more beyond that, I'm not sure.
But are those drawings going to be included in what's presented to the council?
That is correct.
Then it needs to show.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be in there, but looks like there's a traffic signal out there today. Yeah, I honestly haven't thought about this or looked at this in a long time, David. So I don't know that I have an answer for you on that one.
Well, that's the last one I had. So Thank you.
All right, everyone, just to reiterate that, please provide comments to Melissa by June the 8th, and we'll get those incorporated into the draft TSP. We'll be back in front of the Planning Commission in July, and you're certainly welcome to join us there, and then City Council in August.
Matt, I know it's getting late for you. If I could real quick give public an opportunity to ask questions to you. Zach, Paul, do either of you have any questions for Matt?
No, I appreciate the time you've given us previously. Thank you, though.
This is Paul Shelley.
Thank you, Paul. Mhm.
I had one of the quarters specifically to address, actually. There's a map currently on the city Facebook page promoting the park in the confluence. And it shows the bike route from Depot Park going up Kibling to Second and then west to Buxton. And that's the designated bike route shown on that map. But in this report, you're showing, or you're indicating or acknowledging that Buxton, southbound anyway, requires power assist to get up it. I've biked some of the 40-mile loop, especially the Springwater and Marine Drive portions. And to put a grade into the 40-mile loop like Buxton is just ridiculous. So I've tried to bike up Buxton, it's impossible. So I just wanted to point that out. That shouldn't be on the map like that.
I don't know that I'm familiar with the map you're referring to, Paul. Is that one of the TSP maps, or is that another map?
That's actually a city map.
A city map.
Yeah, I recall which map this is, and it was posted on Facebook. It is from a flyer that we have created to describe the Sandy Riverfront Trail. And there's a grant period open. So Chris, that's the smaller flyer. So it doesn't quite show the entire connection. There is a caption that's written about Buxton, I think, that Paul is commenting on. I don't know, actually, if I brought up the Facebook, would that?
You could,
the-
while you do that, I can specify.
Oh, wait, I know it. I'll screen share something.
Sure.
This will clear it up. So
The-
while you talk, I'll do that.
Sure. The reason it's showing Buxton right now has to do with, and some of you remember 4 or 5 years ago when we were having the potential connection between Troutdale and Gresham to connect with the Springwater. And remember that effort got sidelined for obvious reasons because we were having a lot of issue with homeless and vagrancy along the Springwater at the time. Where the regional maps left it off was a literal dashed line along Buxton because that was the only true established connection that could be done with the lowest possible cost. I don't think anybody thinks that that's the optimal route, but that's technically what's on the map. And what it's showing also with Second Street and the idea of connecting into Halsey is also tied to a regional map submission that we have, which suggests rather than try to go uphill with the 40-mile loop, maybe you look east-west along Halsey where you don't have a grade higher than 5%, and then maybe you tie it into the north-south Gresham to Fairview Trail. So that's what those indicators are on the map, kind of regional map ideas for biking. But unfortunately, the inset here just cropped out the label on that map. Yeah, there you go. Melissa has it up on her screen now. It was really an effort to show potential regional connection. That's really what it was about.
Any further questions for Matt? All right. Matt, thank you so much for your time tonight and your patience with us through all this.
Of course. Thanks you guys for your participation. And I mean, this is your committee, so thank you for letting me come to your committee and present on this. And thanks for providing feedback on the TSP. I will do my best to get your comments tonight filtered back in, and I hope that we hope we can get it through Planning Commission and City Council. Good luck to you guys as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
again.
Matt.
Bye.
All right. We still have a little bit to go on our agenda. Does anybody else need a break? For any reason? Y'all doing okay?
I have a question. Go ahead, Chris. Chris, did you have a question?
Well, my only concern is I know we have stuff to get to, and I have to get up at like 5 in the morning. So I'm just a little concerned about that.
Me too.
I was gonna see, are you going to continue on with the stipend discussion?
Yes.
Okay, so just let me know when that is and I will step out of there.
I want to wait until Will gets back.
Okay,
And then offer both of you the opportunity to recuse yourselves again if you prefer. Perfect. Now's your opportunity.
okay. Per Ed Trunky, I must recuse myself. So I will step out of the room.
And we are, I'm actually expecting this to not take very long. And would ask that if you don't mind just staying with us just a few more minutes to wind up the rest of the meeting too. That'd be great.
You can come back in after. Okay, close now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I have a thigh cramp.
Oh,
It's okay.
She can't.
I'm not posing. I'm in pain.
turn around, face wall.
Magnesium, please. Does anybody have any magnesium? I'm not right. Okay.
All right. Melissa, please correct me if I'm wrong. Beg of you, or anybody, correct me if I'm wrong, please. But I believe that we are being asked for a yes or no vote here. A yes or no advisory vote. If you say no, you say no. If you say yes, you have an opportunity to say the full amount that they're asking for or additional or decreased amount that they're asking for. So when you cast your vote, you'll be, if you're casting yes, you may be asked to provide additional information. Do the people present that will be voting feel that they need to discuss this topic further to reach a conclusion in their mind about which way they want to vote? Or does everybody feel they're in a position to cast an advisory vote at this time without further discussion? Will.
Or go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hi, it's quicker than you. I do have one clarification. I think this came up in a couple of past discussions. Was I think we understand the ask, but I don't feel like I fully understand the intent behind the ask. Because I feel like there's been multiple discussions on different aspects of this, like the idealism of volunteering, but then also by not having this, are we making this an inequitable opportunity for members of the community to participate? And so I just don't feel like I fully understand the intent behind the ask to be able to say solidly yes or no, unless there's more information out there.
Okay. Go ahead, Will.
I guess my statement was, I guess, kind of similar to that, because if I were to cast a potential nay vote, then I want to maybe have a quick sentence of why. And are we allowed, if somebody were to vote yes or no, can we have a quick sentence? Just a quick
Absolutely.
statement to clarification?
I absolutely, I think if you want to state why you're casting a no vote, you have that opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
Twyla, what is the stipend for? It's my understanding that the stipends are funds paid to the mayor and the city councilors to use at their discretion for expenses not reimbursed to them by the city. Is that correct?
Yes, purpose of the stipend, yes.
Okay. So basically, it's funds that they get that they can use at their discretion to that they don't have to turn any receipts to receive reimbursement for or anything. It's just money paid to them. Does that help clarify it?
If I think you also asked, Twyla, about various reasons that you might say yes and might say no, for equity issues. You named a couple others, and for you personally, I think those are good things to consider. And they're not directing us to consider any one of those in particular reasons. So if those are important to you personally, then by all means consider them.
Right.
I think council has referred this to us because it is, it's political, and among council members, they may not all agree, and on some of those reasons, they may have differing opinions, so they're interested in more feedback from the community. So they've referred it to our committee being composed of community members to discuss it further. We can take the advisory vote and then include comments on why we voted a certain way, and also about what amount we wish it to, would like it to be. Does that help?
That does help.
Okay.
Do you feel comfortable now casting a vote, you think?
I totally do. I
Okay.
think I know where I stand on it, and then I just will.
All right. We will do an advisory vote. Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
So one thought that came into my mind, because I don't remember how all the rules of this stuff works, but since we have a couple of us that are not able to participate in this, do we have like quorum for taking a vote, or how does that work?
For an advisory vote, what? 5.
For the purpose of recording our opinion, it will be fine. If we were making a recommendation to council, we would need a quorum for that. But for our purpose and discussion, it will be okay to take an advisory vote.
Just an advisory vote this time. Okay.
Just wanted to make sure.
I also wanted to add, to communicate this to council, we can have our chair or vice chair speak to them if you would like to. I can also write up a staff memo that summarizes the advisory vote, and I can link our recordings to our previous 2 meetings as well as this meeting, so they can hear our discussion as it progresses. They can hear the details of our conversation.
Okay. All right. And so aside from Victoria, Amasa, and Diane, who are we missing?
Tonight we are
Heidi
missing
and
Heidi and Alexander.
So we're the vote to.
Oh, and Victoria.
Were the vote to need a quorum, we would have to wait until more members are present.
Yes.
But the advisory vote does not require one.
I do not, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
And those members not present can always go to the council as individuals too.
Okay.
Absolutely. Also, written comment can be submitted to council.
Okay. All right. And I don't believe we need a motion or a motion for this process. So Melissa, do you want to just do a roll call vote?
Yes, let me do that. Shall we do mayor and city council separate or together?
I can do them together.
Together, okay, let's try that unless anybody feels strongly otherwise.
Where I think Mr. Weed was trying to say something.
When you call the vote, could you read the question so it's clear what a no means and what a yes means?
Okay. All right, we will take an advisory vote. The question is, should the stipend amount that is provided to the mayor, and city council be increased.
Okay,
Okay, so for the vote, Twyla,
I would support it. And then should I give my comment now or wait till later?
let's do vote and I'll come back around for
Okay,
comment.
perfect.
Okay,
So that would be yes.
yes, okay. And Will, please.
No.
And Chris?
So I have to say no.
Okay. And Shelley?
No.
Okay. Okay, let's have comments. So-
David?
David?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm still here.
I apologize. And David,
My vote is no.
thank you. Have I missed anybody on Zoom? Sorry, it is difficult to watch the Zoom and in
It is,
person, isn't
especially
it?
when you're sharing the screen. It's very hard to see everybody.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing now so we can look at each other.
All right.
Thanks for the reminder. Okay, there we go. All right, sorry.
All right.
Okay, I'll go back around for comments. So Twyla,
Yes, I would support that. I do think that I would appreciate it going to the voters, understanding that's where the funds come from. But from an equity perspective, I think it is something for us to think about. The opportunity for people to serve.
thank you. Will?
Actually, my answer is probably almost very similar, but I voted no because the reason I think it's a bad optic that we would give ourselves a pay raise, no matter what the amount would be. So I think something like that should be referred to the voters, and that's why I said no, but I don't have, it's not a whole ton of money, it's just more principle of it for me.
Okay, thank you. And Chris?
Well, I guess to be perfectly honest, I don't know if I felt completely prepared to be making a vote either way, but there's a lot that I'm confused on, but I feel like maybe we're being cracked down on because perhaps council wants to know our opinion or whatever, though I don't have the highest opinion of giving one. That's another story.
This is just an advisory vote, Chris. It's not anything we follow. If you want to change your opinion, you absolutely can. Okay.
And I'll go to David next.
Okay, I have a lot of reasons, but I'll limit it to a couple. We were going down a different path last month, and for whatever reason, something changed. And all we do is get to vote yes or no instead of having more details involved. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but that somewhat ticked me off. The one thing we had on consensus in our last month's meeting was we felt there should be open accountability with our city council. And a stipend doesn't give us that. The stipending is a paycheck. They can do whatever they want with it. And no accountability. And that went against everything we talked about in the last 2 months. So vote no. I urge you to change your vote to no. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Reynolds.
I'm actually echoing Will and David. I believe that there needs to be accountability for the funds. They are taxpayers' funds, and their accountability for how the fund is spent to the taxpayers. And because it is taxpayer money, I believe that it's the taxpayers who should make this decision and not a committee and not the council and the mayor themselves or the budget committee. I believe that it should go on a ballot.
So I suppose after our mini discussion, I would probably more resonate towards that sort of view as well, so. It's just advisory, but now they got, I guess, 4 no's out of it, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
It's
good.
a tough one. Good work, you guys.
I'll
Passing this
capture-
along.
Yeah, good.
All right, and if this needs to be on a future agenda, please do not hesitate to put it there.
Hey, I will report back. from-
Rehash it again.
From city council, I'll report this. And again, I just want to welcome you again to speak to council directly. And if you want to provide written comments at a later time, that's welcome too.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much, Will. Okay, great.
All right. All right. All done. July meeting preparation.
Okay, I have some notes as well. Let me share my screen again for a moment.
Thank you, Allison and Diana, for the patience. Sure.
Thank you very much.
I should, while she's getting this ready, take this opportunity, Paul, Zach, if you're still on here, I can't tell. If you have any comments about the stipend issue, please feel free to input now.
I have nothing to add, Shelley. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
We wanted to give a preview of July's meeting. So as you know, our terms are ending on June 30th. The new terms will begin in July. We had 4 open CAC seats and we had 6 applications. So we'll hear the results of this in the next week or 2. We will also be electing a new chair and vice chair. I understand Chair Reynolds has reached out to you via email, so this is on our minds. First, I just wanted to explain, in July, there'll be the meeting transition. So what will happen is our prior chair or our current chair will open the meeting, and our first line of business will be to have elections for the chair and vice chair positions. So I would like for you to think about if that is a position that you would like to take on. And we will have nominations at that meeting. You're welcome to reach out to me for more information about that position. You have an offer to reach out to Chair Reynolds to talk a little bit more about how that position is run. We will help you with an orientation and give you more information on that. But so the way the meeting will begin in July is we'll have the elections, and then if someone new is elected chair, then they will run the rest of the meeting. So they'll be prepared to facilitate and run that meeting forward. We will also have elections for the Town Center Advisory Board. It's a new board that is forming. They're going to have 5 direct appointments that will serve primarily on the Town Center Board. And then each of the existing committees in the city will elect 1 representative who will be a full voting member of that committee as well, of the Town Center Advisory Board as well. And a committee member from CAC will serve a 1-year term. So also be thinking if you would like to have a nomination for that, if you're interested, we will do that election in July. I'm happy to answer more questions about that by email or by phone call or meeting. So let me know if you'd like to know more. Go ahead, Chris.
The way it's tracking right now, the meeting date for that committee is looking like it's the second Thursday of the month. That hasn't been confirmed yet because we don't have the committee yet to be established. So we don't know that for sure, but that's probably the likely meeting date. So if you're concerned about a calendar situation, it's probably the second Thursday. It's probably also initially not going to be a monthly meeting. It might be a every other month or once a quarter type meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Staff communications.
So I'd like to report that since our May, first Friday was canceled due to pretty heavy rainfall and thunder and lightning it did rain quite hard that day. So unfortunately that was canceled, but we will have first Friday this week, this Friday, June 3rd. And the table that we are planning, the outreach table in May, we'll have in June. And this will be, if you would like to come volunteer at this table, I will be setting it up again, and it will be similar to what I had mocked up over here a couple months ago. The two topics that I have prepared for us will be outreach on the transportation system plan, so we can get more feedback from the public to pass along, and the Riverfront Trail. So we've applied for a grant. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. We've applied for a grant from Metro from the 2019 Parks and Nature Trail Bond funds. And right now the public comment period is open, and it's a competitive grant, and more applications have been received by Metro than they have funding available. So we, during this open public comment period, it's important for us to show support from our community that we want the trail. And so part of the outreach at First Friday will be sharing about this project. I do encourage you to take a flyer over here that I have about the project, and it has a QR code and the website for where you can find the survey that Metro has out right now for public comment. So we'll do that outreach at First Friday, and this was also in your packet. I hope that you look through your packet and also look for this link on our city's webpage. Please share that on your social media. Please share it with your neighbors. The more favorable comments that we can get during this open comment period through June 21st, the stronger the chance we have of being awarded these funds and making this Riverfront Trail a reality. So this is the trail, just for review, that goes from our downtown in the depot area where the visitor center is, along the Sandy River through the urban renewal area, and will connect to the existing multi-use path interchange that ODOT has constructed at I-84. So it'll plug straight into there, from which there's more opportunity to continue north into the Troutdale Reynolds Industrial Park and continue on the 40-mile loop. So this is a really important project for Troutdale that we've been working on, I believe, since 2004 or so, our first documented plans with this project idea. Happy to chat more with you about it, but this will be part of our in-person outreach along with the transportation system plan at First Friday. I have a sign-up sheet over here. If you signed up last time, I sure appreciate it. I'm sorry this got bumped, but sometimes that happens in the event world. We have to make last-minute calls like that. Okay, also wanted to invite you all in appreciation of your volunteer service. With Troutdale, there's an ice cream social. It's on June 29th. It's at 6:30 at Columbia Park. Very much hope you attend. We have chocolates in a card, which I think that you saw, and new pins with our new logo. If you're not here tonight, I will make sure that you get it at a future meeting. Okay. Our next meeting here for CAC is July 6th. A quick preview of future meetings. We do have Rebecca Sanchez, Equity and Inclusion Manager. That's still on our list. She will present first to the Equity and Safety Committee. So I'll wait to hear that she has had that presentation opportunity. Then we can schedule her again in the future. I do have scheduled a presentation about the I-205 tolling from the firm WSP that's working on the tolling project. So we'll get a briefing so we're more informed about that project. I'd like to present more to you. I think we were interested in hearing more about the Sandy River Front Trail. Summer, early fall will be a good time as I think that's when we're wrapping up our 90% design phase. So we'll want public feedback on our 90% designs. And then I would like to hear your feedback on taking August off. So we have one summer month that we skip. That would be helpful for everybody. I'll let you know as staff, I'm unavailable on our August CAC meeting, but if you want to meet, you absolutely can, and I will find a substitute staff member to come help for that meeting. But I wanted to bring that up for our conversation. And one last update, we do have some opening positions here. Some staff have accepted new work opportunities or retired actually. So our Public Works Director position is currently open. You may have seen that posted on social media. We're hiring now. Our planning technician, you all know Amber, I believe, and she has received a wonderful new job working for national parks on transportation issues. So she will be working with them, interning while she finishes up her master's degree, and we're very excited for this. It's really kind of a dream job description, so we're very happy for her. And I think that, you know, that our community development director, Chris, has accepted a new position. He'll be working for a local law firm here, Jordan Ramus. We're going to miss him very much, and I'm glad he's here tonight. So for those of you that are here, we'll have a little more opportunity to chat. Yeah, thank you, Chris. Hey,
Any questions?
questions, comments?
Well,
Super excited for the first Friday to happen this year. It's a fun event. Definitely want to volunteer for the second half
okay.
as well. In that outreach, I think we have some opportunity there. Question being, is there any opportunity for us to have the technology available to be able to have people do surveys right on site?
Yes.
Perfect. So if we can get people to do that, that'd be amazing. And then with the question regarding the TSP, it's kind of part of one of the comments that I want to make too, is how we're, you know, how that information is getting out to the people. I know, I guess with that, what is the thought or idea behind the questions, the sticker board, the, you know, whatever that might be regarding asking people for input on that? Do we have any initial thoughts on that? What that might look like?
We have a flyer made up that has a QR code for our website where our TSP update process has been described on there, and I believe it invites email to the content email, so written comment.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes, I just thought I would share a comment on the possibility of taking a break in August. Not that I don't enjoy spending time with you guys, I wouldn't necessarily mind a break month, but I guess I would also say that we should probably look at how many things we have agenda wise to see whether it'll be okay if we miss a month. I mean, as long as we don't have a lot, then I don't see why not.
All right, let's move on to committee comments. David, we're going to take you first.
Okey dokey. First, if Chris is still there, I'm gobsmacked. And congratulations to you. Totally taken back. I just want to thank Melissa. One, she puts up with me. Two, I appreciate your sending out the information on for our packet to read, particularly on the street by the school. I did read it. It took me hours. I skipped a few of the tables, but I read it. I was fascinated by the history of the geology of Troutdale, which I didn't know. And I'm sort of visual, so in my head, as I'm reading this, I'm seeing the town flood and miles and thousands of feet of mud on top of everything. That was fascinating. And lastly, I'd like everyone, I want to reinforce the idea, if you're interested in the Town Center Advisory Board, any of you want to do that, I promote the idea that you should do it. it has a unique opportunity to help shape what the town will look like in the future. The town center committee had very specific ideas about the town having signage and wayfaring signs, but keeping the town feeling like Troutdale does now. And there are things that I think there are a lot of opportunities coming up in the future. So I encourage you to jump on that if you feel inclined. Thank you very much. That's it.
Yes, I just want to thank you for putting together that packet and getting us that information. I agree with David completely. It was fascinating. If you guys didn't read the report fully, to kind of go into the history of the land here and understand that better. And just want to call out to the committee that I appreciate all of you. And it's great that I think we all come with an intent of creating a better community, and I'm happy that we can discuss and have open conversation and differing ideas and opinions. So appreciate that.
Diane?
Thank you, Melissa. And Chris, it's hard. Well, this is just tough because you're vibrant and you're intelligent and you really catered to all of our questions in the committees. And I know that you really try to include everybody, and then you're holistic, really great at trying to just such a whole job. You're going to be horribly missed. I know that you may still kind of work with us, but I'm happy for Jordan Ramus. I'm sad for Troutdale, and you know a whole lot of stuff, so you're the carrier of wisdom in this town as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just, it's hoping we get somebody half as good as you. And anyway, so, and appreciate you.
Thank you.
I know I haven't always been here, Chris, but my husband has spoken about you for long and quite highly. So what I've noticed is that you always are just so good at presenting both sides. You don't seem to be as influenced by your own personal bias. You do a really good job. I'm sure you are internally, but but you do a really good job of not presenting your own personal life. Instead, you are just presenting both sides so that committee members and counselors can make a well-informed decision. So you will be highly missed. And just thank you for all of the hard work, Melissa and Chris. I know that you put into this TSP plan. That's a massive undertaking, so many variables, and just really considering our future. And I just appreciate that.
Chris?
Well, first, I want to say thank you as well, Chris. Also, I guess I just thought I should address briefly. So a little bit ago, we had our discussion about the stipend thing, and Shelley asked for public comments, and Paul said he had done, and I kind of snickered, but I just wanted to clarify that was not a call at all. It was just that, I mean, it's kind of dumb, but I was looking at the captions on the screen and it called Shelley Jelly, so I thought that was kind of silly. So I've been noticing some of the errors it makes, but anyways, there's that. And but yes, thank you for all you did for this.
Thank you, Chris. Well,
one of the things I thought of with the survey, I haven't been on there lately, but have we been hammering the social media and Facebook with the survey link and all that? Like, hey, we want this cool park we want to do. Like, if there's any way we can get in touch with those folks and really hammer that in, that'd be great.
We can. We've had one post on Facebook. I'm not on the other social medias, but I think it probably went on Instagram too. But we do have somebody that post that, posting again before the comment period closes is a good idea. So we can do that. If you have personal social media and you'd like to reshare those posts, there's one post by Metro and there's one post by City of Troutdale themselves.
One of the challenges we have with
And-
Facebook in particular is when we were trying to bump it and promote it, putting money to help get it out, Facebook rejects it.
Really?
Yes,
Interesting.
yes. There are, that happens with a lot of these public outreach type things. So that's why we're begging and pleading people to share it with their own personal accounts. So the more it can be broadcast and reshared, then the metrics, the analytics allow it to populate in feeds all the more. So we're somewhat hamstrung by that.
Thank you. And then, yeah, just kind of wanted to tie together a few things that we kind of, mentioning throughout the process here. I think David and maybe Diane remember back in 2018 when we had the public open forum, or public forums and open houses regarding the town center and
Yeah, I have the article. Yes.
the urban renewal and all that. And I believe the date was January 18th or 24th, January 24th of 2018. And a week later, we got the results and summary of the written comments. And at that time, this was called the Springwater Trail instead of the 40-mile loop. And that definitely created a very large amount of public outreach with people saying, what? You're gonna bring the Springwater Trail into downtown Troutdale? And there was a massive amount of outreach. And I still have a copy of this. It's not available on the website anymore, but homeless camps, #1, hugest big letter, okay? Additional written comments, need a plan for homeless population, prevention of crime moving into our areas, literally one of the things on that written comments. It continues on with at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different other comments regarding the traffic that comes into town, the crime that comes with the homeless, and all that sort of stuff. When I mention public outreach, and people are going to understand about this, when I ask about how are we going to be presenting this in our booth, I have a feeling if we call it, 40-mile loop, and we're going to all have electric bikes and this and that, it's a very utopian sort of view and easy to go along with. But I think when people pull up YouTube and type in Springwater Trail, and you get 40 videos of people getting beaten up, robbed, raped, and so on, people have that reaction. Do they really want to connect these and bring them into town? And if we have ability to share screen again, is that still possible?
Sure.
Just a real quick one here, guys. Desktop, share. Yeah, I mean, you can just see the list of them if you get on there. I think we all know that. I think there's a non-governmental, nonprofit organization that's putting a lot of emphasis on wanting to complete this dream that started in 1904, I believe. And we're 120 something years later. And, we've been, I guess, I don't know, let's just look at the map periods to see this is where they planned it for it to come into town. This is Buxton right here. But if you go to their brand new digital interactive map, you can see where they list where trails in green are there and where the gaps are. And these are all part of this big loop, the Springwater Trail, the thing that everybody sees the videos on and everybody gets that reaction to when this word Springwater Trail comes into the public mind. And they've already showcased this right here. Our new park here is going to bring it in, and then they've already showcased either Buxton or this road and Sandy Avenue as where they want, they're lobbying for this Springwater Trail to come through. Again, I don't know if everybody recalls what is at the end of 3rd and Sandy, and that is our brand new flagship $25 million elementary school that we just paid for to attract families into Troutdale for the next 50 years. we can see where this now dumps out into Wood Village. And this is the one section of this where it dumps out. And interestingly enough, maybe this is completely anecdotal, but it's interesting. It's the only red area in the entire Multnomah County where the sheriffs patrol as the red crime area. Maybe it's completely anecdotal or whatever. It's just surprising to me that is also what is happening. And I'm somewhat, kind of reserved and not really saying too much about it, but when things happen, like you're over at Fred Meyer and come out with my grocery bags and somebody's stealing my license plates off my car in broad daylight at the end of the current Springwater Trail. I mean, my question is have we put this out there to the public as, hey, this is what we're working on. This is what the TSP is doing. The TSP is working hard and it's being presented as wanting to work in cooperation with this group, according to PSU study, says at the very beginning of it, or the PSU class project, excuse me. Where is it? It says in here basically Troutdale has been working with, this to connect it. Again, down here with the stakeholders, it says Metro has a priority of completing this trail. Is that Metro's priority or is it Troutdale's priority? I guess that's my question. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's kind of been something that's kind of been soft to the side and hasn't really been fully let open to air out. And my question is whether or not, the public needs to be re-asked this question like they were in 2018. Do you want Springwater Trail in Troutdale? And see if their sentiment has changed, because as of 4 years ago, that was definitely not wanted. On that topic, that's all I really have. I just wanted to share that information. Let me stop share here. Two things in addition. One, Victoria, I hear is in the hospital. Is that right?
She's home now.
She's home now? Okay,
Yep,
good.
I got an email from her just before the meeting.
Great.
She's home.
I'm gonna reach out, say hi, hope she's okay. And then, yeah, Chris, again, I cannot say enough about resounding, and resonating what everybody said. I had a chance to speak before the meeting, and yeah, big shoes to fill. And I've worked with several other planning department, planning directors, and you are head and shoulders by far previous to. So again, thank you again for your work and service, and hopefully we'll still see you around and then, and wish you all the luck and fortune in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, just for clarity's sake too, because a couple of you, I'm not disappearing off the face of the earth. I'm working with Jordan Ramus, and Jordan Ramus happens to be on retainer for the city of Troutdale, primarily for the city attorney, but also potentially for planning / economic development projects. So there's still a chance, and honestly, that was one of the attractors of this particular firm, was the chance to continue to work with Troutdale in some capacity. And I suspect that'll be the case. I just don't know when and how or where yet, but
Cool.
I hope we won't be strangers. Thank you.
All right. And for my part, you probably don't remember at all, but you were one of the very first people I met coming to my very first meeting here. And I can't even remember what was going on, but you took the time to talk to me, to show me the maps and explain what was going on. And I'm so grateful between you, Will, and David, who I think were all the three people I met at that meeting. It was really clear to me that we have a city of wonderful people, and we thank you so much for being part of that and being so encouraging and helpful to all these committees and being a wonderful resource for us. And of course, we wish you all the best for sure.
Thank you.
For sure.
You do have a good one here though too. And
We do.
Yeah.
I was mentioning that to the city
Yeah.
manager last night.
So you're still in very good hands here. Melissa, thank you for all your work too on the. budget, too.
Absolutely.
Part of the reason you all don't see me is because we just have such trust in Melissa in her capacity. So
She
I don't get to
has
say that on the record very much, so allow me to do that.
infinite patience. Infinite patience.
Yeah.
I also want to say thank you, Councilmember Glanz, for being present. And I hope you know that my vote, my advisory vote tonight was not a reflection on what I think of our city council. I had such an enjoyable time. Selection committee last night was dare I say, even fun. I mean, everybody had such a wonderful sense of humor, and it was such a joy to get to know everybody a little bit more. And you all are certainly worth it. It's just, for me, it's just a matter of principle, and my principle is that voters get to decide.
You know, I'm not supposed to comment, but I'll just say generally that I really appreciate your guys' opinions, and I don't take any of it personally. And I was really glad that you were able to kind of add in some thoughts behind it. It helps a lot. That's what we're looking for, is ideas and comments. And great, no worries.
Yeah, and you've just been so patient, and you're always here. And for that, we're just so grateful to have your support and know that you care enough about the city to participate in the committees that are helping with the decision-making process.
Well, I don't get to participate much, but it does help me when it actually comes before council to have actually had firsthand information of how it got that way.
And that is appreciated too, because often I expect that that's not the case, is they don't know how we got to those decisions, that they hear the decisions, but they don't know the history behind them. And your presence really helps alleviate some of that concern that we might have with the city council. And it is late. I know a lot of us get up early, so I'd like a motion to adjourn our meeting. Anybody?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Have a wonderful night, you guys.
Good night.
Thank you so much, everyone.